When I was growing up, when I was a young man, when we had telephone operators, kuru, 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 hello, can I have number? You give the number, they call for you. Most of those people were disabled people. At what point did we drop that if we have dropped it? I've had people blaming Atwoli a lot. That COVID was around, people were suffering, Atwoli was doing
Layoffs
politics,
and all
he was
that.
BBI. Unknown to them, Atwoli and his team played a key role to ensure that people do not lose their jobs during COVID. Because then there was Kotu sitting down with the Minister of Labor and the Employers Federation of Kenya Employers, the tripartite, and they agreed on a number of things. Because the negotiation between a worker and the employer cannot invite a busybody like SRC in between. They are supposed to be, even where they are supposed to play a divisor role, they now take over as if, So those are some of the things. If a country is moving in the right direction, it creates jobs. Trade unions want the economy to grow and create jobs. So you have an interest in who becomes a president. Again, good governments do good things for workers. So a trade union movement, the trade union leadership can see now we have Ruto and we have Raila. It's okay for them to say between these two gentlemen, we feel Raila, as they have supported Raila, they feel that it is Raila who will serve the interests of the workers.
And Business Glide is back after a short Easter break. Hello and welcome to yet another edition of Business Glide here on Herman Manyora's channel. My name is Richard Mwenja, truly honored that you join us for yet another edition. Now today on the show we want to take stock of the state of Kenya's trade union movement and also look at what achievements have been made by unions such as the KOTU with regards to championing for the welfare of workers here in Kenya. But before we get to that, allow me introduce my analyst for the day, of course, a resident analyst on the channel, Mr. Herman Manyora. Welcome on set, sir.
Thank you, Richard, and welcome back.
All right. Actually, receive greetings from the people of North Rift, particularly Moist Bridge.
Moist Bridge.
Yeah.
I hope they're doing well.
They are doing well.
You have wonderful parents. I saw them and I liked them.
All right, thank you. I'm truly humbled.
Yes.
All right, sir. Today, let's take stock and assess the state of trade union movement in Kenya and what the future portends with regards to trade unionism. If you go back in time, around 1965, we saw people like Tom Mboya really under the Kenya Federation of Laborers champion for workers' rights. KOTU came on board in 1965 after the dissolution of Kenya Federation of Labor. And right now we're seeing KOTU General Secretary, Francis Atwoli, doing some commendable work. What would you say portends the future of trade unionism in Kenya in general?
I think they still have work to do. Because there are employers who still don't want to give workers their rights. So the trade union movement will still exist for a long time to come.
I see.
Because again, it's not just salaries. People think trade unions just fight for salaries. There are other things.
All right.
And they'll continue to, because they are important players in the industrial relations of the country. Yeah.
I see. In the recent times, we've seen quite alarming emerging trends in the side of trade unionism, whereby we see under trades such as electricity generation, we've seen splitting of unions, whereby you have several unions under one trade. What would you say is the potential threat of unions instead of consolidating their efforts with regards to championing for workers' rights? Now they're splitting.
That's not very good. It has happened even teachers' union. When Kupet came on board, I have nothing against them. They are my friends, the leadership. But look at what has happened. First, they came in, they wanted their share, they became Kupet, weekend nut. A weekend nut has become fodder for government, and now nut is gone.
I see.
So you cannot talk of a very serious trade union working for teachers because they allowed themselves to be used.
I see.
Yeah.
All right. Central Organization of Trade Union, now the COTU, under Secretary General Francis Atwoli, is of course the umbrella body to over 45 trade unions in Kenya. But when you see its Secretary General, of course Francis Atwoli, going heavy into politics, would you say that there should be a clear line that doesn't allow going fully into politics? Otherwise, they should be concentrating on workers' rights.
First of all, if there's a line, it must be a very thin line. A naked eye can see it. Because trade unions do agitation. Politics is about agitation. A trade union is a pressure group. Okay? Because quite often, employers want to be pushed into doing things. They want there to be hard bargaining. We may wish that it is not like that. It shouldn't be like that. But unfortunately, most employers will not treat their workers well if they know there's nobody to protect the workers' interests.
I see.
And they do so in a manner that is not so different from politics, number one. Number two, those who say Atwoli is in politics forget, and you have mentioned, trade unions have always taken part in the agitations for political rights and freedoms. You remember COSATU in South Africa?
Absolutely.
And they have connection with the ANC. In this country, Clement Lubembe, Singh, Tom Mboya, Dennis Akumu. They were the people who played a big role in the fight for independence and in the actualization of the things for which we fought after independence. And they were politicians. Further afield in Europe, Lech Walesa, with his solidarity in Poland, and so on. You can go on and so on. You do not try to separate trade unionism from politics. They are almost one and the same people.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Trade unions have a role to play with regards to championing for job security and also sustainable jobs in an economy.
Yes.
Kenya is edging close towards the digital era, and there is highly technological advancement in Kenya. And this has come also with a fair pack of challenges. We've seen massive layoffs because technology is taking the place of physical labor on board. What would you say? How can trade unions now chip in and ensure that in as much as we are highly digitalizing, we can still secure some jobs and make sure that they are sustainable in the long run?
Yeah, before I answer that, I just forgot to mention that one of the reasons why Atwoli and this team must take part in the political direction this country takes is if a country is moving in the right direction, it creates jobs. Trade unions want the economy to grow and create jobs. So you have an interest in who becomes the president. Again, good governments do good things for workers. So a trade union movement, the trade union leadership can see now we have Ruto and we have Raila. It's okay for them to say between these two gentlemen, we feel Raila, as they have supported Raila, they feel that it is Raila who will serve the interests of the workers. So you must understand how these things work. And now to the digital space. Artificial intelligence has brought in its wake destruction in terms of jobs.
A blessing in disguise.
Unfortunately, or fortunately, it's not something you can stand in its way. So when something new comes and you cannot stop it, you must then understand that you need to live with it. How then does the trade union movement protect the jobs which are already going via digital enhanced developments? Yeah, the new development, the new trends with artificial intelligence and everything else you'll find courtesy of ICT.
The convergence and so forth.
So you can't wish it away. You can't stop it. You'll have to find. I was reading something somewhere and I was surprised to find out. In fact, if we embrace ICT properly, if we embrace artificial intelligence properly, it will even create much more jobs than it is eating. Because the idea of artificial intelligence and ICT is to enhance the way we do things. And perhaps therefore enhance productivity. And in the process, it should be able to create more jobs. So the problem is people are reluctant to embrace it. And instead of harnessing what they should harness from it, they try to stand in this way.
All right.
And it passes with them. And in the process, we lose jobs. We must try to find out what do we do in order to mitigate use of machines, use of artificial intelligence, and other forms of ICT.
All right. So.
Yeah.
So I'm not quite that old, but if you go back in time, you've seen Labor Day celebration over time losing the oomph that was there before. And at what point would you say that as a country we lost the bearing? Because right now, if you look at the turnout during the Labor Day celebration, it's quite minimal. And also the Labor Day celebration are quite heavily endowed with political gimmicks and lamentations and so forth. And actually, we're saying this because it's actually just a week away.
No. That is what your observation is right, but your interpretation of it is wrong. All of us, my age mate, we used to walk 15 kilometers to attend Independence Day celebrations. Madaraka Day, Kwanza Jamhuri Day. You know, we used to walk Kenyatta Day. Who walks anymore? So it's not just about Labor Day. It is the developments. From the comfort of your home, you can watch what's going on in Nyayo Stadium. So the urge to go there, the need to go to Nyayo Stadium has been made less by advancement that has brought the whole function in your house, in your room. Why do you need to go?
All
so
right.
there will less and less people will go. And finally, those things will just die natural death.
I see.
There will be no such independence celebrations. There will be no Jamhuri Day celebration. There will be no Labor Day, naturally.
I see.
And it is because it will be keeping with the times.
In the fullness of time.
Yes.
I see. You'll agree with me that we've seen quite a number of cases pending at the Labor Relations and Industrial Court in Kenya. Going into the future, what would you recommend the Judicial Service Commission to do so that, in as much as trade unions are trying to champion for the rights and privileges and welfare for Kenyan workers, we see even the prosecution takes a longer time with regards to employers who are not meeting the rights of the employees? What would you recommend for JSC?
There are several things. Number one, we hope that the judiciary will change generally. Not just in matters of trade union or labor relations. No, not just in the employment courts. In the entire spectrum of the judicial space, where we hope through legislation, administrative action, and so on and so forth, justice will be seen to be done, and done fast, so that the cases do not take forever in our courts.
I see.
When that happens, I'm sure the employment and whatever court will benefit from the same.
Right.
Number two, the Constitution talks about alternative dispute resolution ADR.
Avenues.
We are not taking advantage of that. We are not taking advantage of ADR. We must have alternative dispute resolution mechanisms and processes and avenues and even institutions. We need to create institutions that can help people settle the issues they have without necessarily going to court. So the Constitution has opened the door, but we are not using that door.
All right.
We are still stuck in the room and it's stuffy. So the judiciary must help us and Parliament to actualize that idea of ADRs.
I see.
That going forward. And then we also need to formalize certain relationships. Okay? For example, in some countries, all these disputes about even employer and employee, they don't go to court. They are so clearly stated. It is so clear, everybody knows. The processes are so clear and so clean. So processes that do processing of issues to do with the workers must be made as clear as possible, so that there's no need to go to court. It's clear for everybody to see. That when you are wronged, everybody can just read your letter of employment, your terms, and there's no need of going to, even the MDs told my friend, have you read this? You are wasting your time. And we also need to have issues like in some countries where there's no hard bargaining for salaries. People just look at the consumer price index. They look at inflation for the year, and they just adjust salaries accordingly. That's where we must move, so that then there will be fewer and fewer disputes going to court.
I see.
Yeah.
Let's advance that conversation a little bit. Kenyans are widely perceiving their labor market as the one that is quite harsh compared to the rest in other developing countries. Would you say that our labor legislation is quite inadequate in Kenya as compared to international labor laws?
It depends on what you really mean.
With regards to, especially with regards to minimum wages and salaries and the general business operating environment.
Again, it depends on what you mean. There are people who think our laws discourage investment. You know, that whole requirement of, for example, things like people must be members of a trade union by right according to the constitution, that discourages people. To mean there are people who would want to come here and employ people who cannot be unionizable.
All right.
That's slavery. But there are also those who think that some of the regulations and laws make it difficult for workers to enjoy better perks through negotiations. For example, the existence of what do you call
SRC.
it? SRC is in fact unconstitutional, because the negotiation between a worker and the employer cannot invite a busybody like SRC in between. They are supposed to be, even where they are supposed to play a divisor role, they now take over as if, you know. So those are some of the things. And even minimum wages. There are people who should want to pay more, but they fear because there are minimum wages. If you overdo it, you know, other people might feel, oh, no, you know, trickle down, no, not trickle, what do you call it? This is the ripple effect.
Yeah, ripple effect.
And, you know, some people might also, so there are some regulations and laws that are unfair to workers. Although there are some people who feel there are those that are unfair to employers. But of course, there are also things, when you come up with lots of legislation and policies forcing employer, for example, matter of NHIF, that employers will cough some money, or that issue of housing levy, you know, and so on and so forth, and pension. Sometimes when you overburden the employer, because you say the employee will pay so much, the employer so much, without looking at the impacts on the industry. So some of those may also be negative in terms of growing the economy. So we need to be very comprehensive and very, very careful not to put laws in place that can stifle investment.
I see.
And not to put laws in place also that will turn workers into slaves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Coming to the tails, with regards to employer-employee education in Kenya, how would you rate the efficiency of bodies such as COTU and that one for medical workers in Kenya, regards now education on workers' rights? Have we made commendable success this far, as compared probably to the last decade? Trade
unions continue to engage workers and the general public in matters of labor. So there is a lot of labor education going on. And there are a lot of things the labor movement is doing. The players in the labor industry are doing. There's a lot the Ministry of Labor is doing that people don't know. There's a lot that ILO is doing, even in host countries, in member countries. And there's a lot that trade unions are doing in collaboration with other bodies, and other trade union bodies like ILO and the rest. The American labor, whatever, I've forgotten. They trained me when I was an official of UASO union. We were trained in negotiations, and we learned so many things. So there's a lot that's going on, except that, as usual in this country, not many people get to know what's going on. So, like for example, I've had people blaming Atwoli a lot. That COVID was around, people were suffering, Atwoli was doing
layoffs
politics,
and all.
He was BBI. And known to them, Atwoli and his team played a key role to ensure that people do not lose their jobs during COVID. Because then there was COTU sitting down with the Minister of Labor and the employers, Federation of Kenya Employers, the tripartite. And they agreed on a number of things. Number one, let's not lay off people unnecessarily because of COVID. Let's do it as a last resort. That is COTU, and it was implemented. Number two, where the things are so bad and employees must go home, like a hotel has closed or something like that, please, when you reopen, don't come back with the new employees when assigned. Because it will be very easy to come up with a new person. Absolutely. The demands of a new employee are not similar to the demands of an old employee. They secured that. They secured in some cases, let people be on half pay or some percentage. That is secured. I remember with, I think, Flower Farms, which is the trolley union now, his union, Kenya Plantation Workers Union. They secured that we will pay people part salary, 70%, 60%. But when things work well, when things work
Well,
and we are back to full operation, we will pay people that balance we didn't pay them when things were tough. And those who are home on half salary or on zero salary, when they come back, there will be some monetary gain. So trade unions continue to do things, but many people don't seem to know. And the situation will be much worse if the trade unions were not doing what they are doing and they were not engaged in even our union in Wasu. They do a number of things they do and we just don't know.
all right.
Yeah.
The very last, sir. Would you wish to speak about the issue of advancing equal opportunities to people with disabilities in the Kenyan labor market? Because in the recent times we've seen several come on board and say, in as much as we have trade unions on board, they haven't really sufficiently championed for our rights. They are much inclined to rights of others who are well-abled and that and so forth.
I don't want to say I know so much about that, but it will be tragic if people do not mainstream the disabled in their policies. When I was growing up, when I was a young man, when we had telephone operators, hello, can I have number? You give the number, they call for you. Most of those people were disabled people. At what point did we drop that if we have dropped it? And if trade unions are not, trade unions and employers, if they are not mainstreaming the disabled, first, I'll be surprised. And secondly, it will be a very bad thing.
I see.
Yes.
Well, that takes us to the wrap of this conversation talking about matters trade union movement in Kenya and what the future portends for trade unionism in this very country. And also remember that we continue to give you updates on what has been happening in our economy every Monday and Thursday here on Herman Manyora channel. So get posted on not only our content but also the Business Glide African Proverb of the Week that comes to you after every of our edition. Before I leave, our fan of the week is none other than Jared Mister in Dubai, UAE.
Jared Mr. Habaria Dubai, thank you for being a member of this family. And tell everybody else to join us. And say hi to Kenyans in Dubai. Jared.
All right, it's always a pleasure having with us on board. Thank you for keeping me company as much as I was away for a week. We really appreciate you for always tuning in to Herman Manyora channel on YouTube. Let's keep this conversation going on the Twitter space. I'm at Mwenja Richard on Twitter, at H Manyora on Twitter as well. Up next on your screen is the Business Glide African Proverb of the Day.